Fleet Admiral Junseo stood in the command center of the Alliance's most advanced ship, watching the largest military operation in galactic history unfold. The Council had assembled every available vessel into a massive armada, over 3,000 ships carrying weapons capable of destroying entire worlds. "Final count, Admiral?" asked Captain Yunji, commander of the first human-designed dreadnought. 3,247 Council ships, Junseo replied. Plus support vessels and troop transports. They have committed everything to this battle. And our forces, 418 ships from 31 species. The numbers told a story of impossible odds. But Junseo had learned not to trust numbers alone. The Alliance fleet was smaller, but it represented something the galaxy had never seen. Dozens of species working together with perfect coordination. Intelligence Coordinator Insu monitored communications from across the galaxy. His network of agents, sympathizers, and defectors provided real-time information about Council plans and weaknesses. What they revealed was both encouraging and terrifying. "The Council leadership is fracturing," he reported to the command staff. 17 species have refused to send ships to the Armada. 23 others sent minimal forces while secretly negotiating with us. "What about public opinion in Council space?" asked Junseo, shifting rapidly. "The younger generations especially are questioning everything. There have been protests on over 200 worlds." Insu pulled up holographic displays showing the political situation across the galaxy. Traditional power structures were collapsing as beings realized they had alternatives to Council rule. But this also made the current battle more critical. "The hardline faction is desperate," Insu continued. "They know this is their last chance to crush the Alliance before their own people turn against them. They will fight with everything they have." The battle began at the edge of the Alpha Centauri system, humanity's second-largest settlement. Council forces arrived in overwhelming strength. Their ships arranged in the traditional formations that had dominated galactic warfare for centuries. But the Alliance was ready with tactics that broke every rule the Council understood. Phase 1. Execute, Junseo ordered. Across the Alliance fleet, ships began implementing strategies developed through years of studying Council weaknesses. Small groups of vessels used hit-and-run attacks to disrupt enemy formations. Stealth ships appeared behind Council lines to target command vessels. Most importantly, the Alliance fleet refused to fight the kind of battle the Council expected. Captain Yunji commanded her dreadnought like a conductor leading an orchestra. Her ship could have engaged the enemy directly, using its massive weapons to trade fire with Council dreadnoughts. Instead, she used it as the center of a complex dance involving dozens of smaller vessels. "Enemy battle group moving to intercept us," her tactical officer reported. "Let them come. Signal the corvette squadrons to begin their approach run. When the battle group commits to engaging us, they will find themselves surrounded." The Council forces had overwhelming firepower, but they could not use it effectively against an enemy that refused to stand still and fight. Alliance ships phased in and out of normal space, appeared from impossible angles, and coordinated their attacks in ways that seemed almost telepathic. But the real surprise was yet to come. "Sir," reported the communication officer, "we are receiving a transmission from inside the Council fleet. Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers belonged to Admiral Korthak, commander of the Zephyrian Third Fleet and one of the Council's most respected military leaders. "Alliance forces. This is Admiral Korthak. My fleet is withdrawing from combat. We refuse to participate in this unjust war." Across the battlefield, 12 Council ships broke formation and jumped to hyperspace. Within minutes, similar announcements came from other Council commanders. The mighty armada began fracturing as entire fleets refused to fight. "This is mutiny," screamed the overall Council commander. "Return to formation immediately." But the damage was done. The carefully planned battle turned into chaos as Council ships fought among themselves. Some commanders tried to force their reluctant allies back into battle. Others declared their independence and joined the Alliance on the spot. Junseo watched the tactical displays with amazement. The Alliance had prepared for many scenarios, but they had not expected the Council to defeat itself. "Should we press our advantage?" asked Yunji. "No, signal all Alliance ships to cease offensive operations. Offer assistance to any Council vessel that requests it." The order confused many Alliance commanders, but Junseo understood something they did not. This battle was not about military victory. It was about proving that the Alliance represented something better than conquest. Within hours, the greatest armada in galactic history had dissolved into scattered groups of ships. Some fled back to Council space. Others requested permission to join the Alliance. Many simply drifted in space, their crews unsure what to do next. The aftermath was even more dramatic than the battle itself. Across the galaxy, Council member species demanded explanations. How had their mighty military been defeated without a real fight? Why were their own ships turning against them? What did this mean for the future? President Jiwoo addressed the galaxy from the bridge of her flagship, as Alliance vessels helped rescue survivors from damaged Council ships. Today, we witnessed the end of an era, she announced, not because one fleet defeated another, but because beings across the galaxy chose cooperation over conflict. She gestured toward the rescue operations taking place around them. Alliance ships were providing aid to former enemies, treating wounded Council personnel, and offering safe passage to anyone who wanted to leave. The Council based their power on the idea that conflict was inevitable, that some species must dominate others, that peace could only come through strength. But today proved them wrong. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. On Council worlds, beings watched Alliance ships saving their people and asked why their own government had ordered this pointless battle. In the Alliance territories, celebrations were mixed with relief that the war had ended without massive casualties. But the most significant audience was the Council leadership itself. In emergency sessions across their capital worlds, politicians and military leaders tried to understand what had gone wrong. Our own fleets turned against us, said one general. How do we fight an enemy that turns our people into allies? Maybe that is the point, replied a civilian administrator. Maybe they are not the enemy. The debates that followed would reshape galactic politics for generations. Some Council factions demanded a return to the old ways, calling for even more authoritarian control. But others began to see the Alliance as an example of what they could become. Within weeks of the battle, the first Council member species formally withdrew from the organization and requested Alliance membership. Others began implementing Alliance-style reforms within their own territories. Fleet Admiral Jun Seo met with former Council commanders who had defected during the battle. These experienced military leaders brought with them detailed knowledge of Council capabilities and, more importantly, insights into why so many beings were ready for change. We have been fighting the wrong war for centuries, Admiral Korthak explained during one meeting. We thought military strength was about having the biggest ships and the most powerful weapons. But strength is about having people who want to fight for you. The Alliance has something we never had, added another former Council officer. Unity of purpose. Your people fight because they believe in what they are building, not because they are ordered to. As reports reached Alliance headquarters, the scope of the victory became clear. The Council's military power was broken, but more importantly, their political authority was collapsing. Species that had never questioned Council rule were demanding representation, rights, and respect. The galaxy was changing, and there was no going back. Junseo stood on his ship's observation deck, looking out at stars that no longer belonged to any single power. The Alliance controlled much of the outer rim. The Council still held the core worlds, but their grip was weakening. Most significantly, a dozen independent nations had formed from former Council territories, each trying to create their own version of Alliance principles. What happens now? Asked Captain Yoonji, joining him at the viewing port. Now we find out if we can build something better than what we destroyed, Junseo replied. The easy part is over. Admiral Daeho stood in the center of the massive Council chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, thousands of alien representatives filled the curved seating areas that rose up like a giant bowl. Their eyes, tentacles, and various sensory organs all focused on him, the weight of their stares pressed down like a heavy blanket. The chamber was built to make the person in the center feel small. It worked on most species, but Daeho had faced worse things than angry politicians. He had fought in 3 colonial wars and survived the Titan Plague. A bunch of upset aliens did not scare him. The charges have been read, announced the speaker, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms. Humanity stands accused of aggressive expansion, disruption of established order, and violation of species placement protocols. Daeho almost smiled. Species placement protocols. That was their fancy way of saying humans refused to stay in their assigned place in the galactic food chain. When humanity first joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago, they were told they belonged in the lower tiers. They were young, aggressive, and primitive. The older species would guide them, but humans did not like being guided. They made friends with the wrong species. They shared technology the Council said should stay restricted. They asked too many questions and ignored too many rules. Admiral Deho, the speaker continued, you may present humanity's defense. Deho walked to the speaking platform. The microphone adjusted automatically to his height. He looked up at the sea of alien faces, some familiar, others completely unknown. Somewhere in the crowd sat Hewan, a member of the peaceful Zanari species who had quietly supported humanity for years. She gave him a small nod. Honored Council, Deho began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. I will not waste your time with false apologies or empty promises of change. A ripple of surprise went through the audience. Most species facing exile begged for mercy. The charges against humanity are accurate. We have expanded aggressively because empty space and unused worlds serve no one. We have disrupted your established order because that order leaves entire species trapped in poverty, while resources go unused. We have violated your placement protocols because we refuse to accept that any species is naturally superior to another. The speaker's forearms moved in what Deho recognized as agitation. This attitude is exactly why humanity cannot remain in council space. You show no respect for the wisdom of older civilizations. Respectfully, Speaker, we have great respect for wisdom, but we have seen little of it here. Deho's words cut through the chamber like a blade. We have watched the council ignore dying species because helping them was not cost-effective. We have seen resources hoarded while colonies starve. We have observed technology restricted not for safety, but to maintain power structures. An alien representative with tentacles for arms stood up. Humanity seeks to destroy the stability that has brought peace to the galaxy for 2,000 years. Peace? Deho asked. Tell that to the Kethai, whose homeworld floods more each year while the Council debates whether terraforming technology should be shared. Tell that to the mining colonies of Rigel 7, where workers die in accidents that better safety equipment could prevent. Tell that to any species classified as developing, who watch their people suffer while the Council maintains its precious order. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some aliens chittered in languages Deho did not recognize. Others made gestures that were probably insults. The speaker banged a gavel-like device that produced a deep, resonating tone. Order. Order in the chamber. When quiet returned, the speaker addressed Deho directly. Your species' arrogance knows no bounds. You have been in space for barely a century. Civilizations here have existed for millennia, yet you presume to know better than all of us. We do not presume to know better, Deho replied calmly. We simply refuse to accept that suffering is acceptable just because it is traditional. Captain Boram watched from the observer's gallery, her hands gripping the railing. She commanded the diplomatic vessel that had brought Deho here. She also commanded one of humanity's most advanced warships, disguised as a peaceful transport. The ship's weapon systems were powered down, but her crew was ready. If this went badly, they might need to fight their way out of council space. The formal vote began. One by one, species representatives announced their decision. The pattern quickly became clear. The Althari Confederacy votes for exile. The Silicon Communes vote for exile. The Hive Clusters vote for exile. Deho listened to each vote with the same expression he wore when reviewing supply reports. He showed no emotion as species after species condemned humanity to banishment. Only 3 abstained from voting. The final tally was devastating. 844 votes for exile, 0 against, 3 abstentions. The decision is final, the speaker announced. Humanity has 1 galactic standard year to withdraw all colonies, stations, and military presence from council space. Any human found in council territory after that time will be arrested and imprisoned. The chamber fell silent, waiting for Deho's reaction. Many expected him to beg for mercy or at least show some sign of defeat. Instead, the Admiral stepped forward to the microphone one last time. On behalf of humanity, I thank you. His words shocked the chamber back into noise and confusion. You have freed us from your limitations. You have given us permission to explore the galaxy without your restrictions. You have allowed us to help those you have abandoned without worrying about your rules. The speaker's forearms waved frantically. This is Exile, Admiral. Punishment! You will be cut off from galactic trade, technology, and civilization. Deho smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a nice smile. Speaker, you assume we need you more than you need us. In 1 year, when our ships cross into the outer rim, we will take with us every human scientist, engineer, soldier, and dreamer. We will take our curiosity, our refusal to accept impossible, and our dangerous habit of treating other species as equals. He paused, looking around the chamber one more time. In 50 years, the galaxy will remember this day, but not as the day humanity was exiled, as the day you freed us to become what we truly are. With that, Admiral Deho turned and walked toward the exit. Captain Boram met him at the chamber doors, along with the small human diplomatic team. As they left, the chamber behind them exploded into arguments and angry debates. That went well, Boram said quietly as they walked through the station corridors. Better than expected, Deho replied. Now we find out if humanity is as strong as I told them we are. Wu Jin stood on the observation deck of New Seoul Station, watching the steady stream of ships heading toward the outer system. For 3 months now, the evacuation had continued without pause. Massive cargo vessels carried entire factories. Smaller ships transported families and their belongings. Military escorts moved between them like protective shepherds. Status report, he said into his communicator. Colony 7 is completely evacuated, came the reply from his assistant. Colony 12 will finish loading tomorrow. We are ahead of schedule. Wu Jin nodded. As Earth's chief colonial coordinator, he had spent his entire career building human settlements across council space. Now he was tearing them all down. But this was not a retreat. It was something else entirely, sir. Another voice crackled through the comm. We have a problem at Colony 4. The Althari are demanding we leave behind the medical equipment. Which medical equipment? All of it. They claim it belongs to the Council since it was purchased with Council credits. Wu Jin felt his jaw tighten. Colony 4 treated over 2 million beings from various species. The humans had built hospitals there that served anyone who needed help, regardless of their government's politics. Tell the Althari that if they want the medical equipment, they can come and take it. But they should bring their own doctors because ours are leaving with the equipment. 3 decks below, Dr. Subin worked in her sealed laboratory. Around her, carefully labeled containers held samples and artifacts that officially did not exist. For 20 years, she had secretly studied materials the Council had banned. Ancient precursor ruins were off-limits. Alien biotech was restricted to approved researchers. Certain types of AI were completely forbidden. Subin had ignored all those rules. Her research team had collected samples from dead worlds, studied artifacts from extinct civilizations, and experimented with technologies the Council considered too dangerous. Now, as humanity prepared for exile, this forbidden knowledge might become their greatest advantage. Dr. Subin, her assistant, a young man named Jin Ho, poked his head into the lab. The transport ships are asking about your cargo manifests. Tell them the containers hold biological samples for agricultural research, Subin replied without looking up from her microscope. It is not even a lie. Some of this will help us grow food in places where nothing should be able to live. She carefully sealed another sample container. Inside was a fragment of precursor crystal that could store more energy than a fusion reactor. The Council had banned its study after an early experiment nearly destroyed a research station. But Subin had found a way to stabilize it. Her discovery could power entire colonies. Engineer Tae Yang worked around the clock in the orbital shipyards above Earth. His team was building something that had never been attempted before, a completely new generation of human ships. These vessels incorporated design principles from dozens of different species, combined in ways the Council had never seen. The Council believed in specialization. Each species had their role, their technology, their place in the hierarchy. Mixing technologies was discouraged. It was inefficient, they said. It created compatibility problems. But humans had a different approach. They studied everything, borrowed ideas from everyone, and combined technologies in creative ways. A human ship might use Zentari engines, Kethai armor, and completely original human weapon systems. The test flight went perfectly, Tae Yang told his lead designer. The hybrid engines are 30% more efficient than anything the Council has. What about the stealth systems? Even better. We combined Wraith phase shifting with void energy dampening. A ship can practically disappear from sensors. Yang looked out at the construction yards where dozens of these new ships were taking shape. They looked different from anything else in the galaxy. Human ships had always been functional rather than beautiful, but these vessels were both. They curved and flowed like living things, but bristled with weapon ports and sensor arrays. Back on Colony 7, the last human families prepared to leave their homes. Many of these people had been born here. Their children had never seen Earth, but nobody complained about the evacuation. Instead, there was a sense of excitement in the air. "We are not losing our homes," said one father as he loaded his possessions onto a transport. "We are going to build better ones." The Council had expected humanity to be broken by exile. They thought humans would beg to be allowed back, would promise to follow all the rules, would accept their place in the hierarchy. Instead, they watched in growing unease as humanity methodically stripped their former territories of everything valuable, abandoned. Alien research stations that had been left to decay for centuries were suddenly crawling with human salvage teams. Ancient ruins the Council had declared too dangerous to explore were being systematically excavated. Even the orbital debris from long-forgotten battles was being collected and hauled away. "What are they planning to do with all of that junk?" asked one Council observer. "I do not think it is junk to them," replied his partner. "Humans see opportunity where we see problems." The most troubling sight was the response of other species. The Council had expected them to celebrate humanity's exile. Instead, several lesser species were quietly requesting permission to join the human evacuation. The Kethai had formally asked to relocate their entire population to human space. 3 mining colonies had declared independence from their Council-appointed governors and requested human protection. "This is becoming a crisis," admitted one Council member in a private meeting. "If other species start following humanity's example, the entire system could collapse." But it was too late to change course. The vote had been taken. The decision was final. As the 10th month of evacuation began, Wu Jin received a message from Admiral Dae Ho. The Admiral was aboard the command ship that would lead humanity's exodus into the unknown regions beyond Council space. "How are we doing, Coordinator?" Dae Ho asked during their video call. "Better than expected," Wu Jin replied. "We will be ready to leave ahead of schedule. And Admiral, we are not leaving empty-handed." "Good. The real work begins once we cross the outer rim. Out there, we will discover what humanity can truly accomplish when we are free to be ourselves." Wu Jin looked out at the stars. Somewhere beyond the edge of Council space lay humanity's future. It would not be easy. There would be dangers the Council had never faced. But for the first time in 50 years, humanity would be free to make their own choices, their own mistakes, and their own destiny. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth. Soon, they would learn what that decision had truly cost them. Minho stood on the bridge of humanity's new capital ship, looking out at something that should not have been possible. 5 years ago, this region of space had been empty except for a few dead planets and scattered asteroids. Now, a thriving civilization stretched across 12 star systems. "Population report," he requested from his aide. "Just over 40 million humans across all colonies," she replied, "plus approximately 8 million non-humans who have joined us." Minho nodded. As Supreme Coordinator of Human Space, he oversaw the largest independent nation in the galaxy. The Council had expected humanity to struggle in exile, to barely survive in the harsh regions beyond their borders. Instead, humans had built something unprecedented. The secret was simple. Humanity did not play by the Council's rules. "Sir, we have another request for admission to the territories," his aide continued. "The Veltar species. Their homeworld is dying from industrial pollution, and the Council has denied their cleanup requests for the 3rd time. What can we do for them? Dr. Yuri believes our bioremediation technology could restore their atmosphere within 10 years. Minho made the decision without hesitation. Grant them emergency refugee status. Begin immediate evacuation of their population. This was exactly the kind of thinking that had gotten humanity exiled. The Council said the Veltar were a developing species that needed to solve their own problems. Helping them would disrupt their natural development. But Minho saw people who were dying while bureaucrats debated. Down in the research complex on New Terra, Yuri worked with technologies that would have terrified the Council. As humanity's lead precursor tech researcher, She had unlocked secrets that had been hidden for millions of years. The crystal matrix is stable, she told her team. We can begin full-scale power generation next week. The precursor crystals Dr. Subin had smuggled out of Council space were the key to everything. They could store massive amounts of energy, power terraforming equipment, and even bend space-time in limited ways. The Council had banned their study after accidents in the early days, but Yuri had solved the stability problem. What about the Dimensional Resonance Project? Asked her assistant, promising. If we can tune the crystals correctly, we might be able to create artificial wormholes. Imagine being able to travel across the galaxy in days instead of months. Yuri looked at her laboratory, filled with technologies from dozens of extinct civilizations. The Council preserved these artifacts in museums, studying them slowly and carefully. But humans had a different approach. They experimented, they combined technologies, they took risks. Sometimes those risks failed spectacularly. Last month, an experiment had accidentally created a small black hole that took 3 days to safely contain. But sometimes the risks paid off in ways that changed everything. Admiral Dongwu commanded the human defense fleet from his flagship, a vessel that looked like no other ship in the galaxy. Human engineers had combined technologies from 12 different species with their own innovations. The result was a ship that could outrun, outfight, and outmaneuver anything the Council had. Admiral, his communications officer, reported, "We are receiving a distress call from the HFY homeworld. They say Council forces are blockading their system." Dongwu studied the tactical display. The HFY had been humanity's first allies in exile. Their species was slowly dying from a genetic disorder that Council medicine could not cure. But human researchers working with forbidden biotech had developed a treatment. "How many Council ships?" 12 heavy cruisers, sir. They are demanding we stop treating the HFY and return them to Council custody. Inform the Council commander that the HFY are under human protection. If they want to continue their blockade, they will have to go through us. Sir, 12 cruisers against our 3 ships? Dongwu smiled. Send the message. Then prepare for combat operations. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations. The Council ships were larger, more heavily armed, and outnumbered the humans 4-1. But they had never faced human tactical doctrine. Human ships did not fight like Council vessels. They did not line up and exchange fire until one side was destroyed. Instead, they moved like a school of fish, coordinating perfectly, using their speed and agility to strike from unexpected angles. The lead human ship seemed to flicker in and out of existence, using precursor phase shift technology to avoid enemy fire. The second ship used gravity weapons that bent space around the target, making it impossible for the Council ships to aim accurately. The third ship deployed swarms of tiny drones that attached to enemy hulls and began cutting through armor. Within 20 minutes, the Council fleet was in full retreat. Damage report, Dongwu requested. Minor hull scarring on Ship 2. No casualties. The enemy lost 2 ships completely and 6 more are severely damaged. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy, faster than any official report. For the first time in galactic history, Council forces had been decisively defeated by a smaller, supposedly inferior fleet. President Jiwoo addressed the growing alliance of species that had joined humanity in exile. The Grand Assembly Hall on New Terra hosted representatives from 47 different civilizations. Some had fled Council oppression. Others had been rescued from extinction. All of them had found something in human space they could not find anywhere else. Freedom. Friends, Jiwoo began, 5 years ago, the Council told us we were too dangerous to remain in civilized space. Today I want to talk about what we have built together. The statistics were impressive. Agricultural production in human space exceeded anything the Council had achieved. Technological advancement was happening at 10 times the rate of Council civilizations. Most importantly, species that had been dying under Council rule were thriving. The HFY population has increased by 30% since joining us, Jiwoo continued. The Veltar homeworld will be fully restored within 8 years. 3 species that were extinct in Council space have been successfully cloned and reintroduced to new worlds. But the most significant achievement was harder to measure. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of species were working together as equals. There was no hierarchy, no superior races, no ancient laws that could not be changed. We have proven that civilization does not require oppression, Jiwoo concluded. We have shown that progress comes from cooperation, not control. And we have demonstrated that the galaxy is large enough for multiple ways of thinking. In the back of the assembly hall, Ambassador Haiwan sat quietly. She had defected from the Council 6 months ago, bringing with her detailed intelligence about Council military capabilities and political weaknesses. Her reports painted a picture of an institution in crisis. Several Council species were secretly negotiating to join the human alliance. Others were demanding reforms that the Council leadership refused to consider. Most importantly, the younger generations across Council space were asking dangerous questions about why things had to stay the same. After the assembly, Minho found himself alone in his office, looking out at the lights of New Terra's capital city. In 5 years, humanity had built something that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about civilization, but he knew this was only the beginning. The Council would not ignore them forever. Eventually, there would be a reckoning, and when that day came, humanity would be ready. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth thinking they were removing a problem. Instead, they had freed humanity to become something the universe had never seen before, a civilization without limits. President Jiwoo signed the document that would change galactic history. The Outer Rim Alliance Charter established formal relationships between humanity and 63 other species. For the first time since the ancient Precursor Empire, multiple civilizations were joining together as equals rather than conquerors and subjects. "It is done," she announced to the gathered ambassadors. "Today marks the birth of a new kind of galactic nation." The signing ceremony took place on New Terra, in a building designed by architects from 12 different species. The result was unlike anything in Council space, a structure that celebrated diversity rather than hiding it. Crystalline spires from the Veltar reached toward organic curves inspired by the Keithai. Human engineering held it all together with invisible strength. General So Young reviewed intelligence reports in the Alliance Military Command Center. As the chief military strategist, she had spent months preparing for the Council's response to their growing power. The reports were troubling but not unexpected. Council forces are massing at 3 different staging areas, she told her staff. Fleet composition suggests they are preparing for major operations. "What kind of operations?" asked her deputy. "The worst kind. Full invasion fleets with troop transports and siege equipment. They are not planning to negotiate." So Young studied the tactical displays showing Council ship movements. Traditional military thinking would suggest the alliance was doomed. The Council had thousands of ships compared to their hundreds. They had centuries of military experience and proven weapons systems. But So Young was not worried. The Council was still thinking like the Council. "Begin Phase 1 preparations," she ordered, "and send a message to all our allies. It is time to see if our new way of fighting actually works." Ambassador Hyun Soo received the Council's ultimatum in her office on Diplomatic Station Alpha. The message was formal, threatening, and completely predictable. The Council demanded the alliance dissolve immediately. All non-human species must return to Council custody. Humanity must withdraw beyond the void barrier, a region of space so dangerous that nothing could survive there long. "They have given us 30 standard days to comply," Hyun-soo told President Jiwoo during their secure communication. "After that, they will use all necessary measures to restore order." "What do our allies say?" Jiwoo asked. Unanimous rejection. Even the newest members are willing to fight rather than return to Council rule. This was the test humanity had been preparing for. Could the Alliance survive a direct confrontation with the galaxy's dominant power? More importantly, could they do it without becoming the same kind of oppressive empire they opposed? "Begin evacuation of non-essential personnel from border systems," Jiwoo ordered. "But make it clear to everyone we are not retreating. We are choosing our battles." Dr. Yuri worked frantically in her laboratory as the deadline approached. The precursor technologies they had been studying for years were about to face their ultimate test. Theoretical research was becoming practical weapon systems in a matter of weeks. "The dimensional anchor array is ready for deployment," she reported to the military commanders. "If a Council fleet enters the target zone, we can trap them between normal space and subspace. They will not be able to jump to hyperspace or return to real space." "What about the probability cascade generators?" asked General So Young. "Those are more experimental. The basic theory is sound, but we have only tested them on asteroids. If they work on ships, enemy targeting systems will become completely unreliable." Every shot they fire will have a random chance of hitting something else entirely. Yuri looked at her team of researchers, beings from 15 different species working together on projects that violated every council law about weapons development. But these were not weapons of conquest. They were tools of survival, designed to protect rather than destroy. The council thinks technology belongs to whoever discovered it first, she told her team. But knowledge wants to be shared. When different species work together, we can achieve things none of us could accomplish alone. As the 30-day deadline expired, council fleets began moving toward Alliance space. The first target was the HFY system, chosen because it was relatively isolated and contained the Alliance's largest non-human population. The council expected an easy victory that would demonstrate the cost of defying their authority. Fleet Admiral Jun Seo commanded the Alliance defense from his flagship, a vessel that embodied everything humanity had learned about cooperation. The ship's crew included beings from 23 species, each contributing their unique skills and perspectives. The human captain worked alongside a Veltar navigator, a HFY sensor operator, and an engineer whose species had no name humans could pronounce. Enemy fleet detected at the system's edge, reported the sensor operator. 47 heavy ships plus support vessels. Our fleet strength? 12 ships, sir. The odds were impossible by any reasonable calculation. But Jun Seo had stopped thinking in terms of council logic months ago. Deploy the dimensional anchors, he ordered. Activate probability cascade generators. All ships. Implement Pattern 7 combat formation. What followed was unlike any battle in galactic history. The council fleet advanced in traditional formation, their massive ships designed to overwhelm enemies through superior firepower. But as soon as they entered the system's inner regions, strange things began happening. Ships that tried to jump to hyperspace found themselves stuck in normal space. Weapons that fired at Alliance vessels somehow struck other council ships instead. Most confusing of all, the Alliance fleet seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, phasing in and out of normal space like ghosts. What is happening to our targeting systems? Demanded the council fleet commander. Unknown, sir. Every time we lock onto a target, something interferes with our sensors. Our own ships are reporting friendly fire incidents. How many enemies are we facing? I am not sure, sir. Sensor readings indicate anything from 12 ships to over 100. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the council fleet retreated in disorder, having accomplished nothing except proving that their traditional tactics were useless against Alliance technology and strategy. News of the victory spread across the galaxy within hours. For the second time in galactic history, a council fleet had been defeated by supposedly inferior forces. But this time the defeat was total and public. Impossible, said one council member during an emergency session. Our military assures us their ships are the most advanced in the galaxy. Perhaps advancement is not just about having the biggest guns, suggested another member, one of the few who had opposed humanity's exile. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that maybe we made a mistake. Maybe humanity was not the problem. Maybe we are. The debate that followed would continue for months. Some council members demanded even larger fleets, more powerful weapons, complete destruction of the Alliance. Others began to question whether the entire council system needed to change. But the most significant reaction came from ordinary citizens across council space. On dozens of worlds, beings watched recordings of the battle and asked themselves a simple question. If the mighty council could be defeated by a coalition of exiles and refugees, what did that say about the council's claims of superiority? President Jiwoo addressed the galaxy from New Terra 3 days after the battle. Her message was broadcast on every communication frequency, transmitted by ships that appeared briefly in council systems before vanishing again. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, yesterday you witnessed something that the council said was impossible. A free alliance of equal species defeated a fleet sent to destroy us. But this victory is not just ours. It belongs to everyone who believes that cooperation is stronger than domination. She paused, looking directly into the camera. The council wants you to believe that their way is the only way. That hierarchy is natural, that some species are meant to rule while others serve. But we are proof that they are wrong. The message ended with an invitation that terrified council leadership. The alliance is open to all species that choose freedom over fear, progress over tradition, hope over despair. We judge beings by their actions, not their ancestry. We share knowledge instead of hoarding it. We offer partnership, not servitude. Within weeks, the first Council world formally requested to join the Alliance.